tried, and groups in our population were excluded from those trials. It's also very important that we overcome a lot of misinformation so that people could be encouraged to do that. At the time when I stepped into the trial, we had basically a single percentage representation of African Americans in the trials. So where we are teaching institutions. Xavier, we have a legacy in biomedical research, and also we send more African Americans to become physicians. It was our mission to speak loudly, and sometimes we speak loudly and teach by example. The example is to roll up our sleeves and get stuck with a needle.
And so what you got stuck with a needle? Tell us personally what the process has been for you. Take us through it.
We are well vetted. They are my physician who had spoken to me about that, who had alerted me that the trial was here, reviewed my medical records. When I arrived at the trial, they went through a very long informed consent process. Informed consent process is very detailed, and also there's a review of the information by independent physicians as well, to make sure that there are no worries and that I can be included in the trial. They tell me of possible consequences and reminding us that this was an efficacy trial, that the safety steps had been vetted in a smaller group. So it was important that 30,000 of us, 0.1% of the population, step up and do this out of service, not for ourselves, but for the communities of people who will depend on this vaccine.
And, it's so important that you mentioned that process you went through with the informed consent, the possibilities of problems you could have. You certainly know what they're looking for when you go in for this trial. And you mentioned even in your plea to students and to staff that historically there is skepticism, especially among the Black community. And you can't, it's easy to understand when you look, for instance, at the Tuskegee trials, which were unethical, which did not have that informed consent process that you talk about. I mean, you had Black participants unknowingly, right, who had syphilis, and then even after the trial was over, they were never even treated for symptoms that could have so easily been treated. So historically, there's this issue. How do you overcome what is a skepticism that I think once you dig into it makes a lot of sense?
I think it is important for us to actually remember, further, we have to acknowledge Tuskegee, and also not just Tuskegee, but many other similar events that occur. Tuskegee is only one example. But also we have to remind ourselves that we have learned a lot from Tuskegee. The fact that in the oversight committees, they're very diverse, they're very transparent. There are people like myself around the table, physicians, public health experts who are around the table vetting and asking questions about the trials. It is very different from today. It is also that we remember that Tuskegee was, we are not going to close our eyes and say that that systemic racism doesn't exist in this country. It has existed. But at the same time, that should not preclude us from making sure that we have access to something that is necessary to save the lives of our people, especially given that African Americans and other people of color are dying and suffering from COVID-19 at disproportionate rates.
President, thank you so much, President Reynold Verret, for being with us. I really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you.